I want you to imagine the sensory experience of a standard traditional wedding reception. Like, you know the exact sequence of events before you even open the invitation.
Right, the classic formula.
Exactly. You show up at a hotel ballroom or maybe a banquet hall. The carpet has that overly busy geometric pattern, the one to hide the stains.
Yeah, the casino carpet aesthetic.
Yes. And you spend 45 minutes in this crowded hallway for cocktail hour. You're shouting over a string quartet just to talk to someone you haven't seen in like 5 years.
All while trying not to spill your drink.
Right. And then you sit down, you get served the standard mass-produced chicken or fish, you dance to Mr. Brightside, maybe Don't Stop Believin', and then right around midnight, the fluorescent house lights just snap on.
The universal signal to get out.
The catering staff is already aggressively clearing your centerpieces. You're ushered out into a parking lot, and the entire thing is just a sprint. It's this highly decorated, incredibly expensive 5-hour conveyor belt.
It really is. And for the couple hosting, it's even faster.
I mean, you spend maybe 90 seconds talking to each individual guest while doing those frantic rounds from table to table. It's tradition, but honestly, it often feels way more like a performance than a celebration.
Well, yeah, because you're trying to cram a lifetime of relationships into a single evening.
Exactly. But now take that frantic, high-pressure 5-hour window and just completely throw it out.
Hmm.
Imagine instead waking up on a Tuesday morning, you're in a rented villa overlooking the Mediterranean or maybe a massive cabin complex in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
That sounds significantly better, honestly.
Right. Your friends are there, your family is there. There's a casual welcome dinner under the stars that night. The next day, half the group goes on a hike, the other half takes a boat tour. The actual wedding ceremony is just one piece of this 4 or 5 day immersive shared travel experience.
It's a total reinvention of the timeline.
So today, for this deep dive, we are tearing down the mechanics of pulling off a wedcation. We are looking under the hood of these multi-day destination weddings to figure out how couples in 2026 are fundamentally hacking event planning, travel logistics, and, well, human psychology to rewrite how we gather.
Because it's not just a trend anymore, it's a structural shift.
Yeah, and whether you are actively planning an event, standing in as a highly stressed maid of honor, or you are just fascinated by the sheer logistical warfare of massive project management, this is the ultimate blueprint for the future of hospitality.
It really is a complete paradigm shift in behavioral economics and social dynamics. I mean, we are no longer talking about throwing a really good party.
It's way beyond a party.
Exactly. When you transition from a 5-hour local reception to a multi-day international event, you cease to be just a host. You are simultaneously operating a boutique travel agency, a complex vendor management firm, and a highly synchronized financial operation.
Which sounds completely exhausting.
Oh, the variables multiply exponentially, and your margin for error effectively vanishes. But the psychological payoff,
Right.
that sustained, deeply immersive shared experience, is exactly why the data shows this model completely dominating the events industry right now.
Okay, let's unpack this.
And
Because you say psychological payoff, and that is exactly where I want to start. The very concept of taking 100 people to another country for 4 days sounds, on paper, completely irrational.
financially and emotionally, yes.
It requires a massive amount of capital, time, stress. So this shift from a localized sprint to a multi-day international marathon, why is this the standard now? Like, what is driving someone to look at the traditional one-day event and say, no thanks, let's make this 5 times longer?
Well, if you look at the industry data and the sociological trends driving 2026, there are 4 major psychological drivers behind this.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is a desperate need for deeper, unscripted guest connections. You mentioned that 90-second conversation with the bride and groom at a traditional wedding.
Yeah, the obligatory table touching.
Right. That is a universally acknowledged pain point. Couples are spending tens of thousands of dollars to gather the most important people in their lives in one room, and the structure of the event actually prevents them from interacting.
Because they're locked into the schedule, now we cut the cake, now we do the first dance.
Precisely. A wedcation structurally dismantles that pressure. If you have 4 days together, you can sit down and have a meaningful, hour-long conversation with your college roommate on a Tuesday afternoon over coffee.
Oh, that makes sense.
The result is that you don't feel this crushing guilt when you only wave at them from across the dance floor on Thursday night. The math of human connection completely changes.
So you are basically diluting the panic of having to perform perfectly for every single guest in a 3-hour window. You're just buying time.
Exactly. You are buying the luxury of time. And the second driver is the demand for maximizing the return on travel investment.
Return on investment for the guests, you mean?
Yes. We are in an era where time and attention are our most precious commodities. If you ask a guest to purchase a flight, take 3 days off work, secure childcare, and book a hotel room.
Just to go to a 5-hour party.
Right. Giving them a 5-hour party in return feels like a vastly unequal exchange. It feels like an extraction of their resources.
Like they're doing you a massive favor.
Exactly. But if you architect a curated, multi-day vacation experience, you shift the entire value proposition. You are giving them genuine, tangible value for the effort they expended.
It changes the framing completely.
Yes, the psychological framing flips from an obligation I have to attend to a luxury vacation I get to experience.
Which honestly changes the entire mood of the crowd before they even arrive. If I feel like I'm being dragged to an obligation, I'm sitting there analyzing the dry chicken, looking at my watch.
You're finding flaws.
But if I feel like I'm on vacation, I'm just happy to be there. And that seems to lean into the third driver, right? The shift from passive attendance to active participation.
Yes, the participation aspect is huge.
Because at a traditional wedding, you sit in a folding chair, you watch two people say vows, you clap, you eat. You are basically an audience member.
A spectator.
But at a wedcation, you're, I don't know, navigating a foreign transit system with the groom's uncle. You are learning to make pasta with the bride's coworkers. You are actively building memories.
It's the core tenet of the experience economy. People no longer want to witness an event. They want to be integrated into it.
That makes total sense.
And that leads directly to the fourth driver, which is the sheer flexibility of the canvas. When you aren't fighting the clock of a single evening, you don't have to cram wildly different emotional beats into a 5-hour window.
What do you mean by emotional beats?
Well, think about a standard wedding. You have to rapidly pivot from solemn, tearful vows to a formal dinner and then straight into rowdy, chaotic dancing.
It is a bit of an emotional whiplash.
Right. But with a wedcation, you can isolate those emotional states. You can host a loud, chaotic welcome party at a local pub on night one.
Okay, yeah.
Then a serene, highly formal ceremony on a cliffside on day 3, and a quiet, deeply emotional farewell brunch on day 4. You have the breathing room to let different moods exist independently.
I see the appeal of isolating those emotional states. That sounds incredible, but I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Because in theory, this sounds like a beautiful, sprawling canvas. But in reality, it sounds terrifying.
It is definitely intimidating.
If we stick to the sprint analogy for a traditional wedding, right? You train for it, you run your heart out for 5 hours, you cross the finish line, and you collapse. You're done.
You survive it.
Yeah. But a weddication is like organizing a multi-day music festival where you are the headlining act, the stage manager, the promoter, and the security detail all at once.
That's a very accurate description.
So doesn't spreading it out over 5 days just multiply the stress by 5? Like, if something catches fire metaphorically or literally on day 2, you still have 3 whole days of hosting left.
It's a completely valid reaction, and it's honestly the primary barrier to entry for most people considering this route. But the psychological reality is actually the inverse.
Wait, really? How does it lower the stress?
Well, provided the underlying logistics are ironclad, let's examine the pressure cooker of a single day. If you have a 5-hour outdoor wedding and a freak thunderstorm rolls in, your entire wedding is defined by that crisis.
Yeah, that's true. It's ruined.
There is absolutely no time to recover. The narrative of your wedding becomes the one where we all got soaked.
Oh, that's brutal.
But in a multi-day event, the pressure is decentralized across multiple anchors. If it rains during the Tuesday welcome dinner, it's just a funny anecdote. Everyone knows they still have the Wednesday excursion and the Thursday ceremony under sunny skies to look forward to.
So you have backup moments.
Exactly. Spreading the events out significantly lowers the acute, devastating pressure of a single perfect moment.
Okay, I buy that. But that decentralized pressure completely collapses if you choose the wrong battleground. Like, you can't host a seamless multi-day event if your guests are stranded at a border crossing or if the local infrastructure just can't support 100 people.
No, you absolutely cannot.
Which brings us to the geography of this whole operation. Where are you actually taking these people?
Geography is destiny in event planning. You can have the best timeline in the world, but if the physical environment works against you, the event will fail.
So what are the top locations right now?
Right now, the data shows heavy saturation in 4 specific archetypes. You have European coastal towns, which offer that classic high romance aesthetic.
Very Amalfi Coast.
Yes. Then tropical islands, which are optimized for a pure relaxation and resort vibe. Mountain resorts, catering to adventure-focused demographics. And cultural heritage cities, which provide a deeply immersive historical anchor.
Okay, but selecting among these isn't just a matter of scrolling through aesthetic Pinterest boards, right?
Not at all. There are brutal logistical realities you have to face. Specifically, accessibility, seasonal conditions, venue density, local vendor quality, and economic compatibility.
Let's drill down into accessibility because this is where I think people get blinded by the fantasy. Let's contrast two options. Say a couple is debating between a deeply immersive cultural heritage city, like maybe a stunning historic town nestled in the Andes Mountains of Peru, versus a highly developed tropical island in the Caribbean, like the Bahamas.
That's a very common dilemma.
Right. And on Instagram, the Peruvian mountain town looks like a once-in-a-lifetime, breathtaking adventure.
Visually, yes. Logistically, it is a completely different tier of difficulty.
Walk me through it.
For the Peruvian mountain town, you have to map the supply chain of your guests. How many layovers does it take to get there? Are there direct flights from the major hubs where your family lives?
Probably not.
Right. And when they finally land at the international airport, are they taking a 3-hour bus ride up winding, high-altitude roads?
Oh, man. In the dark, probably.
Exactly. Now factor in your 75-year-old grandparents. Factor in friends traveling with toddlers. Suddenly, that breathtaking adventure becomes a grueling, exhausting deployment.
It sounds like a military operation.
It essentially is. Contrast that with a Caribbean island. Your guests take a single 4-hour direct flight from New York. They step into an air-conditioned shuttle, and 20 minutes later, someone is handing them a welcome cocktail in a resort lobby.
Yeah, that's night and day. And we haven't even touched the geopolitical layer, like visas and passports.
The silent killers of destination weddings.
Seriously, because a remote, untouched destination in Southeast Asia might be incredibly cheap once you are actually there. But if the host country has stringent entry requirements, you are fundamentally altering your guest list before you even print the invitation.
Exactly.
I mean, if the visa processing time is 6 months and requires an in-person consulate interview, a huge percentage of your friends simply will not come.
And this is where we see the absolute necessity of integrating technology from day zero. We're going to talk extensively about the digital UI of event planning later, but platforms like Weddizer are being utilized specifically to solve this exact accessibility friction.
How does software fix a visa problem?
By catching it early. When you build your initial guest list in the software, you aren't just putting in names and emails. Modern platforms allow guests to securely input their passport expiration dates or citizenship statuses during the initial save the date phase.
Wait, really? The software actually flags passport issues?
Yes, because human beings are notoriously terrible at checking their own travel documents until, the week before a flight.
Guilty. I've definitely done that.
We all have. So if a platform like Weddizer flags that 20% of your absolute must-have guests have passports expiring within the 6-month window required by your dream destination.
Or that they require complex visas.
Right. You now have the data to either pivot your destination choice early or trigger automated reminders for them to renew immediately. You are mitigating a crisis before it ever materializes.
That is wild. But it makes total sense. You are crowdsourcing the logistical liability.
Exactly.
But okay, let's say you solve the accessibility issue. You find a location that is relatively easy to get to. Everyone has their passports. The next massive hurdle, and this is one I think people completely underestimate, is local vendor quality.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want a luxury experience on a remote, pristine island, how do you actually execute that if the local economy doesn't specialize in high-end events?
You don't. Or, more accurately, you pay an astronomical premium to import the infrastructure. Let's look at a hyper-specific mechanical example. Ice.
Wait, ice? Like frozen water?
Yes, ice. Think about it. If you are hosting a high-end multi-day event for 100 people in a remote rustic location, you need thousands of pounds of clean, stylized ice for cocktails, catering, and chilling across 4 days.
Okay, I hadn't thought of that.
If the local municipality doesn't have a commercial ice plant that can guarantee that volume, what do?
I have no idea. Buy out the local grocery store.
They won't have enough. You are suddenly renting and barging in commercial freezers. You're securing backup diesel generators in case the local power grid fluctuates, and you're paying specialized technicians to run them.
That is insane.
If the local vendor ecosystem cannot support the scale of your event, you are no longer just renting a venue. You are essentially building a temporary town.
So you're basically doing FEMA-level logistics just to have a cold martini.
Exactly. This is why the destination must match your tolerance for operational friction. If you want seamless, plug-and-play execution, you select a destination that processes hundreds of destination events a year. Places in Tuscany, Maui, or the south of France.
Because they already have the infrastructure.
Right? They have warehouses full of luxury chairs, competing lighting technicians, and deep, reliable supply chains. If you demand off-the-beaten-path authenticity, you must accept a vastly higher degree of friction, unpredictability, and imported costs.
Okay, let's assume the couple has done the geopolitical and supply chain math. They've picked a destination with a solid vendor ecosystem, direct flights, and no visa nightmares.
Good. They're starting strong.
The guests arrive. Now we have to look at the actual architecture of the experience, right? This 4-day blueprint. Because you can't just throw people into a foreign country and say, entertain yourselves until the wedding.
No, that leads to chaos.
But you also can't micromanage them like a strict tour guide. So how do you actually design the days?
You have to view the 4-day itinerary not as a list of parties, but as a carefully engineered narrative arc. It is a progression of social dynamics designed to manipulate the energy of the crowd.
Okay, walk me through the engineering of that arc. Day 1 is arrival and the welcome party. The primary instruction here in the blueprint is to keep it intensely casual.
Right. Now, think about the physiological state of a guest on day 1. They have navigated airports, they're likely sleep-deprived, they're dealing with mild culture shock or jet lag, and their cortisol levels are elevated.
Yeah, nobody feels glamorous after a 9-hour travel day.
Exactly. If you force them to immediately put on a formal suit and sit through a heavily structured dinner with speeches, they will actively resent you.
Oh, for sure.
Day 1 is purely about decompression and nervous system regulation. It is a soft landing, a low-stakes cocktail hour or a casual buffet where people can arrive late, drop their bags, grab a drink, and organically start mingling.
It's the lobby of the experience. It's where the bride's high school friends realize they are standing next to the groom's cousins, but there's zero pressure to perform.
Precisely. Which beautifully sets the stage for day 2, activities and exploration. This is where you deploy group excursions, a walking tour of the local ruins, a massive beach day, or a catamaran cruise.
Okay, I have always looked at day 2 as essentially a corporate team-building retreat, but disguised as a vacation.
That's not entirely wrong.
You are taking strangers who have zero shared history and forcing them into a shared environment. But I do want to push back on the forced fun aspect of
That's
this.
your concern.
What about the guests who are deeply introverted? The people who spent a lot of money to be there, but the idea of being trapped on a catamaran with 40 strangers for 5 hours sounds like a waking nightmare.
Very true.
Does this social engineering backfire if people feel trapped, like they have to participate?
That is a crucial point, and it's why modern event architecture relies on the concept of structured freedom. You never make day 2 activities mandatory, and you never book up the entire day.
So you just give them the option.
Right. You offer an anchor, you say, the boat leaves at 11 a.m. for anyone who wants to join, and we'll be back by 3 p.m. You give the extroverts the shared bonding experience, but you explicitly give the introverts permission to opt out.
Ah, permission is key.
You literally tell them, if you'd rather read a book by the resort pool, please do. The beauty is that even the introverts benefit from the extroverts' bonding. Because when the groom's coworker and the bride's uncle get splashed by the same wave on that boat, they forge an inside joke, they break the ice. So when the introvert shows up later to dinner, the overall tension in the larger group has already dissipated.
Oh, that's brilliant. The social lubrication has basically been outsourced to the extroverts.
Exactly.
So by the time we hit day 3, the wedding day, the heavy lifting is completely done. The main ceremony and the massive reception happen, and the energy has to be completely different than a hometown wedding.
It is electric. Think about a traditional one-day wedding. The first 2 hours of the reception are often quite stiff. People are evaluating each other, figuring out the social hierarchy of the room.
Staring at their phones during cocktail hour?
Exactly. But by day 3 of a wedcation, the 2 families and all the disparate friend groups are already functioning as a temporary, tight-knit micro-community. The dance floor is packed from the very first song because the awkward getting-to-know-you phase was resolved 48 hours ago. The climax of the narrative arc is earned.
Wow. And then day 4 is the farewell brunch, the resolution, the falling action.
It provides essential psychological closure. At a traditional wedding, the lights come up, you get in your car, and the next morning you wake up in your own house feeling this abrupt, hollow drop in dopamine. The event just vanished.
Yeah, the post-wedding blues.
Right. A designated farewell space allows everyone to physically say goodbye, share photos from the week, and slowly downregulate their energy before heading back to the airport.
But all of that beautiful narrative arc, all of that careful social engineering is entirely dependent on those guests actually making it to the venue in one piece.
Which is never guaranteed.
If the travel journey is a disaster, day one isn't a soft landing, it's a trauma ward. So let's talk about the supply chain of moving these humans, because the analysis here highlights the absolute chaos of travel delays and the psychological warfare of the guest journey.
The guest journey is where the theoretical perfection of a timeline collides violently with the chaotic reality of global transit. And the operational concept that determines survival here is buffer time.
Yes, buffer time. I want to illustrate this with a very specific, terrifying anecdote that was referenced in the material we're looking at today. There is this travel vlog run by the Louise family.
Yes. The Gatwick incident.
They documented a scenario titled EasyJet Terminal Switch Caught Us Out at Gatwick. Let's unpack the anatomy of this nightmare, because this is exactly what happens when you don't build in logistical armor.
It is the perfect micro-study of macro logistics.
Okay, put yourself in this scenario. You have 30 of your guests, a mix of friends, some elderly relatives, maybe people with strollers, all booked on the same budget airline flight out of London Gatwick, heading to your wedding in Spain.
Sounds like a recipe for anxiety.
Right. They arrive at the airport early, they feel good, they are sitting in the departure lounge having a coffee, then suddenly, without warning, the departure board flashes an unannounced terminal switch.
Which at Gatwick is not a minor inconvenience.
No. Gatwick is a sprawling, massive complex. A terminal switch is not just walking down a hallway, it is a full-blown logistical expedition. It involves navigating crowds, getting on transit trains, hauling heavy luggage up escalators, and literally sprinting.
And the panic sets in immediately.
The cortisol levels in your guests instantly skyrocket. Families start snapping at each other. They are sweating. They are panicked. They are terrified of missing the single flight that gets them to day one of your event.
Now, overlay that panicked reality onto a rigid, unforgiving event timeline.
Okay.
If you, as the host, have scheduled your day one welcome party to begin exactly 3 hours after that specific flight is scheduled to land in Spain, you have engineered a brittle system.
It's going to snap.
Let's play it out. Half your guest list